Hi, I'm Apostle Anya Hall, and I just wanted to stop by to give you a nugget about intercession. Intercession is extremely powerful and important. And in the day and age in which we live, it is absolutely necessary. One of the things I want to talk to you about intercession is intervention. Please understand that intercession is a very vast and in depth subject. It is not surface, neither is it simple, but yet it is absolutely necessary. And one of the things that intercessors do is intervene. To intervene means to come in between so as to prevent something from happening. It also means to come in between to change a result. Perhaps the results are not as desired. They're not favorable, and it's not what we would want or what the person wants or what have you. However, intervention can change results. This is a key component of intercession, and intercessors need to master this particular skill, the skill of intervention. It requires intercessors who are intelligent, who are learned, which means that you study to show yourself approved, that you research, you ask questions, and you gain the wisdom of God on the matter that you're intervening in. We don't simply react to situations and circumstances, we respond. And that calls for research, that calls for questions, that calls for trying to find out exactly what is going on. And that means that the intercessor must be discerning. Discernment is to determine the true nature. Here's the key word: true. The true nature of a thing, an event, a person, or a place. It doesn't matter what people say it is. It doesn't matter what people say it is. It doesn't matter how it appears. It doesn't matter what it looks like, sounds like, even feels like. What is it really? What's really going on? And so the intercessor has to pull back from the situation and get the mind of God on it. You can have your mind. That's your opinion. The intercessor has their own opinion, their own perspective, their own perception of a thing, their own understanding. The people that are involved in whatever situation is going on, they're going to have their own opinion, their own perspective, their own perception, their own understanding. All right? It doesn't matter. The intercessor must pull back and get the mind of God on the matter, because God knows every perception, every perspective. He knows every viewpoint. He knows every opinion. And here's what God knows. God knows the truth, and he's able to get to the root of the matter, what's really happening, what's really causing the results, what's really bringing about the results, what's driving the results, what's driving the manifestation or the symptoms. He can get to the root of the matter. So if the intercessor is going to intervene, then they must understand that it is imperative for them to pull back and get full discernment, get the true nature of the matter, the person, the event, the place, and or the thing, and then get the mind of God on it, and then get the strategy from the Lord. How is it that I am to intervene in this situation? What is it that I am to do? And how am I to come in between, spiritually and or physically or even financially? How am I to do this? Do understand that intercession does require action. There is going to be some action that the intercessor must take. And this may be spiritual action, this may be physical action, this may be financial action. However, you're going to have to take action if you are an intercessor. And sometimes it's one or all of those things. Sometimes it's two or There are different types of action. It may even be something that I haven't mentioned that God requires you to do, but you will be required to do something. Pick up the phone and make a call, send an email. There's something that you are going to be required to do as an intercessor, especially if you're going to intervene. Okay? Because intervening is the act, once again, of going in between to prevent something from happening, to go in between to change the results or the outcome of a thing, to change the event, the way it's happening, the way it's playing out. That's what intervention does. It doesn't sit on the sidelines and spectate and become a commentator. Intervention does not commentate, it does not spectate, but it participates in changing the outcome, changing the results, changing the event. That's what intervention does. Remember, I told you that intervention is used to prevent something from happening or arising. One of the ancient definitions of the word prevent is to give spiritual guidance and help to go before and give spiritual guidance and help. This tells us that the intercessor must have not only the mind of God on the matter, but they must have the wisdom of God on the matter. The Bible tells us that there are two kinds of wisdom: earthly, sensual, and devilish, and then there is the wisdom of God. In intercession and intervention, we cannot give earthly, sensual, and devilish wisdom. We must have the mind of God and what? The wisdom of God, so that we can go before that person as a intervener and give them spiritual guidance, good, righteous, godly, integral, and sound spiritual guidance, as well as help them. The word help in the Hebrew means to surround in order to protect. It is to surround in order to protect, to render support, relief, and release, especially in times of difficulty and crisis. So the intercessor is an intervener and a spiritual guide through the wisdom of God, as well as help. And one of the ways we need to learn as an intercessor to help is to find out what's really needed. Once again, there's discernment. A lot of times people don't know what they need. They may say, this is what I need, and that is what I need. But they're in a state of crisis. They're in a state of upheaval. And so, yes, they may know that they need certain things, but there are other things that they may be completely unaware that they are in need of. And that's where, once again, the wisdom and the discernment of God come into play for the intercessor, who is sent to go ahead to give spiritual guidance, who is sent to help, render support, relief, release, and aid, and protect, and who is sent to intervene, to change the outcome and the results that the enemy would seek to do and have in the life of someone. Listen, 1 Samuel, the 17th chapter, tells us the story of David, who became an intercessor that intervened on behalf of the entire army of Israel and the king Saul at that time, because the Philistine and their champion Goliath, and these were the enemy of God's people, and they had come out against them to fight them in battle. And they had a giant champion by the name of Goliath. Goliath was the result of fallen angels having sexual relations with human women, and they would birth Nephilim. This was a new species, a new race of being, And they were giants, they were huge, they were brutish, they were big, they were brash, they were strong and almost undefeatable. And so, therefore, the people of God did not think that they would be able to defeat this enemy. And the challenge had been set. If you defeat our champion, then we will be your servants. But if you do not defeat him and he defeats you, then you will be our servants forever. The people of God were about to lose their freedom, but God had something else in the plans. David had been sent down by his father to his brothers who were in the army to give them some supplies and some food. And when he got there, he found the people of God backed into a corner. He found the king fearful and the army fearful, and they had been under the threat of this enemy. And the outcome did not look favorable. Not only was the outcome not favorable for the king, not only was the outcome not favorable for the army, but remember, this was the entire nation's freedom on the line. All the people who were back at home and all the people who were back tending to their homes, their cattle, their sheep, their business, and just going about their daily lives, they didn't even realize that their freedom, as they knew it, their way of life, as they knew it, was on the line. They did not realize that they were in need of an intercessor who knew how to intervene, someone who knew how to come in between and change the results, and not only that, change the outcome and the event itself, so that they would be free from the threat of the adversary, free from the dominion of the enemy, free from being sold into servitude through the defeat of their army. They had no idea. And so David came down, and David became the intercessor that intervened to change the entire outcome, the intercessor that intervened, that rendered aid, who protected the Israelites, who protected the king, protected the army and the entire nation, who rendered support, relief, and release during this time of crises and difficulty that they were facing. This is what God means when he says, I sought for a man to stand in the gap and make up the hedge, someone who would come in between in the empty space and place and intervene to change the results, to change the outcome, to change the entire event, so that we would get the desired outcome and victory would be ours. This is what God is looking for in this day, an intercessor who intervenes. Well, that's my nugget for now, and I pray that it's been a blessing to you.